समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Pakistan seems to be living through several seasons at once. Abroad, Field Marshal Asim Munir and his chosen few speak the language of mediation, performing the role of an indispensable interlocutor. Islamabad frequently multi-aligns Washington, Tehran, Riyadh and Beijing with elan, but without alienating either. Yet, beyond its manicured visage, seasons change faster. Guns have not fallen silent in either Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The border with Afghanistan periodically becomes a battlefield, and the pine-covered mountain roads, once smelling of wet earth in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, are right now filled with bullets, funerals, and an internet blackout. The country is at once both the sum of its maneuvers and the prisoner of its sinful statecraft. This is why Asfandiar Mir's argument in Foreign Affairs titled Pakistan won the war in Iran is both persuasive and yet incomplete. Now, Pakistan did help produce the temporary ceasefire in April and host the highest level direct contact between the United States and Iran since 1979, so credit where due. But the story is not about Pakistan's emergence as a stabilizing middle power. It is practicing what may be called geopolitical arbitrage, which means exploiting the different prices that rival capitals place on Pakistan's access, geography, military manpower, and diplomatic ambiguity or flexibility. Ahmed Baksh Jamali and Mahmood Hussain have described this as pragmatic hedging, maximizing returns from China and the US while cultivating a zero-enemy posture. But hedging, in my opinion, sounds too sparse for Munir's Pakistan. This is brokerage with epaulets. Stephen David's classic idea of omni-balancing is more useful, where rulers align not merely against foreign threats, but to manage dangers to their own survival. Pakistan's external activism, then, cannot be separated from its military establishment's search for money, legitimacy, and indispensability in an unstable home. Now, there is also an element of performance anxiety. Munir, like his predecessors, relentlessly pursues the idea that only the army can make Pakistan legible to the world. Now, in her book, Military Inc. 2007, Aisha Siddiqa described the Pakistani army as an institution whose power rests on its economic empire. Others have shown how this military tutelage has stunted civilian autonomy. Foreign policy has become another military enterprise. Every invitation, defense contract, and handshake validates Rawalpindi's claim that civilians may be allowed to partially govern Pakistan, but it's the army that can really sell it. Mediation doubles as regime maintenance, staged before patrons and Pakistanis alike. So let's understand the situational statecraft a little better. The Gulf disarray offers ideal conditions for this arbitrage. The Saudi-Pakistan Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement from September 2025 declares aggression against one and aggression against both. During the US-Iran war, Pakistan reportedly deployed around 8,000 troops, JF-17 aircraft, drones, and an HQ-9 air defense system in aid to Saudi Arabia. Now, Kuwait has also ratified a 5-year agreement with Pakistan, originally signed in 2023, that covers training, intelligence, logistics, and defense technology. But it doesn't really contain any explicit troop deployments. Now, one interpretation is that Pakistan's diplomatic stock has risen. More importantly, Gulf security itself is being modularized. What does that mean? Saudi Arabia wants collective deterrence and has proposed a maritime coalition supported by Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. The United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar have also sought Ukraine's battlefield-tested, inexpensive counter-drone expertise. Now, what is important here to note is that none is abandoning American weapons or presence, but all are reducing singular dependency on the US through overlapping, cost-effective arrangements. Pakistan fits this architecture because it bundles trained personnel, operational experience, and access to affordable Chinese and Turkish subsystems and platforms. Now, you may have seen reports that claim that Chinese manpads destined for Iran may transit through Pakistan, which is denied both by Beijing and Islamabad as for now. But this illustrates the possibilities and dangers of the South Asian nation becoming everybody's passageway. However, this role for Pakistan is not new. Pakistani airmen helped build Gulf Air Forces. Pakistani pilots and advisors served in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, with deployments to the kingdom at times having exceeded 10,000 personnel. More than 11,000 Pakistani troops defended Saudi borders and religious sites during the 1990-1991 Gulf War. Yet, the relationship has limits. Pakistan refused to join the Saudi-led Yemen intervention in 2015. Now, while it would be, tad too simplistic to describe Pakistani soldiers merely as mercenaries, the bargain part is unmistakable. Pakistan supplies security labor and strategic reassurance. Gulf patrons provide deposits, oil facilities, and financial bailouts. So let's understand the brokerage abroad and coercion at home situation better. The paradox is that the broker abroad remains a cruel, coercive state at home. For decades, it has been so that the army's ideology prefers enduring risk to accepting an unsatisfactory status quo. The same logic also travels inward. For instance, Pakistan recorded 3,417 violence-linked fatalities in 2025, a 34% annual increase and its worst year in a decade. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan accounted for more than 96%. The economy, Pakistani economy that is, grew by 3.7% in the financial year 2025-26, but remains inside a $7 billion IMF program with public debt around 68.5% of its GDP. Long story short, diplomatic agility coexists with structural fragility. The current crackdown in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir exposes this contradiction most brutally. The Jammu Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee, or the JAC, began in 2023 with demands for cheaper flour, electricity priced against locally generated hydropower, and an end to elite privileges. Its expanded agenda now seeks abolition or restructuring of the 12 assembly seats reserved for refugees living elsewhere in Pakistan. 12 of 45 directly elected seats and 12 of the 53-member full house. Protesters argue that these constituencies enable Islamabad to engineer governments in Muzaffarabad. But Islamabad, in no mood to let go of this control, instead calls the protesters state enemies. Casualty figures remain contested under the communications blackout. Recently, Reuters was quite conservative and estimated around 30 deaths since June. JAC now alleges dozens more dead and hundreds more wounded. What is beyond dispute is the political gravity of this revolt. Baloch and Pashtun descent has long been dismissed by the Punjabi establishment as peripheral. But they can't do that with Kashmir. Pakistan has spent decades centerpiecing its Shahrag or jugular vein. However, when the supposed vein itself rejects the center's control, the state's existential metaphor begins to look absurd. India has sharpened its response, especially after Defence Minister Khwaja Asif accused Indian agencies of backing JAC. Now, New Delhi's legal position is not new. The unanimous 1994 Parliament resolution demanded that Pakistan vacate the occupied territories. But Gilgit-Baltistan remained largely absent from Indian strategic discourse on Kashmir until Rajnath Singh's 2022 declaration that India's journey to resolve the question of Kashmir would only be complete after reaching Gilgit and Baltistan. Even now, most Indians conflate that region with the so-called Azad Kashmir, ignoring their different institutions, populations, and grievances. The distinction matters, because this is where Beijing enters the picture. So Gilgit-Baltistan is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or the CPEC's northern throat. The Karakoram Highway enters Pakistan from Xinjiang through Punjab, travels across Punjab and Sindh, reaching Gwadar in Balochistan, which is the corridor's endpoint. Now, China has watched armed groups attack its interests from Gwadar to Dasu, where 5 Chinese engineers were killed during an unprecedented attack in 2024. Instability now shadows the northern part of the corridor as well. A 68-day traders' protest halted Khunjerab traffic in 2025. In 2026, electoral and dam compensation protests blocked the highway once again. Now, regarding finances, Beijing has not invested one neat, verifiable lump sum. The CPEC portfolio is commonly valued above $60 billion, mixing commitments, loans, and private power projects. And nor is it a completed corridor. One assessment counted only 38 of nearly 90 proposed projects completed, with 23 still under construction and roughly a third untouched. Andrew Small has called China Pakistan's greatest economic hope and trusted military partner, and that logic will further explain why the CPEC might still prevail. Packaged anew, the two sides launched the CPEC 2.0 in 2025, which promises 5 corridors: growth, livelihood, innovation, green development, and regional connectivity, alongside the Karakoram Highway realignment, industrial zones, and the delayed ML1 railway. Now, despite the region's chronic instability, China is unlikely to surrender this route and access to the Arabian Sea. Persistent violence may instead produce more demands for a visible Chinese security posture. For instance, deeper intelligence coordination, hardened enclaves, private protection, and perhaps eventually a larger official presence in the form of an outpost. Now, that prospect should concern both India and the United States. Yet, apprehensions around balkanization of Pakistan remain improbable for many of the same reasons I just outlined above. China, Turkey, the US, Gulf money, and Pakistan's army all possess strong incentives to prevent state fracture, even while the domestic reforms and strategic course correction required to stabilize the society may be indefinitely postponed. For all practical reasons, then, New Delhi should expect a flailing Pakistan punching above its weight internationally and cracking down on its populations internally, regenerating cross-border infiltration into India, and all of this for its own survival. Pakistan is thus neither a miraculous winner of global instability nor an imminent ruin. It is a state monetizing disorder while being consumed by disorder, mediating wars overseas while militarizing politics at home, offering corridors to others while closing roads to its own citizens. In today's appended order, muddles can become leverage and puddles may reflect grand ambition. But no performative can indefinitely reconcile mediation outside and repression within. Eventually, the mountains return to the echo, and I'll be back to discuss that and more, so you stay tuned. But before we leave, thank you to all our 3 million YouTube subscribers for helping us reach this milestone. Your support keeps us going and motivates us to keep delivering our best journalism every day. If you haven't subscribed yet, join the print community by hitting the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video.